This is the Ryobi 18V sliding miter saw with model PBT01B. Now Ryobi has a very special place in my heart. Ryobi isn't where I started my journey into cordless tools, but it was certainly where I committed to a battery system. These batteries are expensive, so when I was going cordless, my top consideration was the lineup of available tools. At the time, Ryobi had the largest selection, so that's what I went with. Anyway, a friend of mine bought this miter saw and asked if I wanted to play with it, and of course, I said yes. So shout out to Casey Camacho of Kulay Blind for lending me his miter saw. Okay, let's get to the review. For starters, it's small, light, and super easy to handle. The miter stops are a great touch for consistent cuts, and the locking mechanism is super simple. There are triggers at the bottom to move it, and then you just twist this handle to lock. There's a depth stop to make dado cuts, or for whatever reason you don't want the blade to go all the way through your material. There's a nice beefy looking miter clamp. Standard onboard storage for your adjustment and blade change tool is also there. And speaking of blade changes, check out this ingenious feature. When you lift the blade guard past a certain point, it stays up. Now, some might say this might be a safety issue, and yeah, I guess you could argue that, so just remember not to do it unless you're changing the blade. But how great is that? You lift the blade guard, it stays up, and now you have direct access to the bolt that holds the blade. Now, I don't change my blades very often, but when I do, I'm always somehow struggling and fumbling to do it because you have to unscrew a bolt, lift the guard out of the way, and then you can access the bolt. It's not crazy complicated, but it can just get cumbersome. Finally, the blade is just 7 1/4 inches, which I love. Now, some people won't like this because they want the big, bad, beefy machine, but I just mostly work on plywood and 2x4s. I don't need a monster of a machine to get the job done, so this baby is the perfect size and weight for me. Okay, so that's the good stuff, but it's actually not all rainbows and sunshine with this unit. There are a few things that I found that were not stellar. Firstly, the miter saw came out of the box requiring some calibration. The zero stop for the bevel adjustment of the blade was maybe half a degree off, so the blade wasn't square to the work surface. The fence wasn't square to the blade either, which meant I had to make some adjustments to the fence and the miter stops. Having said this, after making all of the adjustments, it was dead square and just perfect. But still, it kinda sucked that I had to do so many adjustments. Another thing I wasn't crazy about were these handles. They're plastic, unlike other miter saws that are metal. Now, I'm sure the plastic also makes it a lot lighter, so it helps with the weight, but I don't know, metal would have been nicer. Finally, there's no top carry handle. I'm actually not sure about this one, and maybe it's just me, but this is the first time I've actually seen a miter saw with no top carry handle. Strangely enough, I found myself looking for it. Like after using the saw, I would find myself extending my hand, getting ready to grab it from the top and realize, oh, that's right, you can't do that with this. I have to grab it from the sides. So there you have it. Final thoughts. If you are already invested in the Ryobi 18V line, I think this sliding saw will serve you well after you've calibrated it. I know Ryobi also released a miter saw, I think it's with a 10-inch blade that uses two 18V batteries, but for me, I'd prefer this. Again, it's because I'm just a DIYer and I'm not really working with hardwoods that might require a ton of power, and I know I will appreciate a lighter miter saw that uses just one 18V battery and has a smaller blade.